Nice. So this software is going to mess up too, apparently. Who would have guessed that everything I do would get interrupted? Not me, clearly, not from the past 10 years of me dealing with these demons, hating my new path. So, the odd thing is it's almost like the demons have raised me and guided me. That was odd, very odd, but that's just one of the magical ways the energies of the world works. You may find yourself surrounded by vipers and thieves, but you may have benefited from it. But you can always turn it around. You can always, start becoming you and doing something else. It sounds like I didn't plug this mic in, so you might have some background noise. Maybe I should plug it in. Who knows if this is going to work properly. I know I've said this before, and they always have updates, so who knows. So, apparently, the evil Ruby Scooby-Doo has been helping us find the evil Ruminati. And the evil Ruminati's been attacking America with weather. And we know this is a fact because people who are generally scared to show their face on YouTube and know nothing about anything tell us that they're watching weather radars, and weather radars have pretty colors, and the pretty colors tell them everything they know, because they're not experts on colors or weather or radars or even internet that they're using to broadcast this on, or televisions that they use to, and monitors they use to themselves monitor it with, or really they have no information at all on anything, but they're wizards who just, they know this stuff. Know for sure they know it because they say it, right? Because they say it, they know it. So the evil Ruminati is attacking America with weather. And evil Ruminati hates America because America is so good and pure. It's the holiest of the holy nations. It's, when Jesus came to earth, you can remember in the first, before the first page, it's in the foreword of every Bible, it says, America is so great, USA will be number one. America's actually demons, and we'll have to kill all these people, but then we'll take it over and call it the nation of nations, the Lord's nation, aka USA. So we know that they're correct, that the evil Ruminati hates America because God created USA. I'm sorry, not America. America is evil demons. They don't have the right skin color. But USA, they are God's people because they have the right skin color. Number one. America's number one. Never forget that, or else. Remember Gaddafi. Remember Gaddafi. America's number one. Or God will kill you like he did Gaddafi, right? So, but in reality, what I'm seeing is something else. See, what I'm seeing is exactly what I wrote in the title here. I'm seeing, woe to you, great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls, In one such hour, great wealth has been brought to ruin, and the whole world mourns. It's a sad day for USA. It's been a sad January, February, March, April. So we're into the 6th month of Ruminati using weather weapons destroy America. And hoo-yah! They're so powerful and intelligent here, they can control the weather and everything. And wow. They're so advanced, they're critical thinkers and everything. The technology is so advanced in this nation. I mean, they're really advanced people here. I mean, have you ever sit down and talked with an American? It's like, whoa, I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. It's like it's like talking to some super species found in an advanced Star Trek episode where, they're just so intelligent. Everything you hear from them is just mind-boggling. You're like, wow, we'll take that information right now and we'll build a whole new planet with it. We're so advanced. Everything's so great here. Hey, what's up, new viewer? Just discussing how advanced America is. You just talk to the people here and you're instantly enlightened. Because that's, how they control the weather. So, the weather going on here, it says, here, let's go to 14. They will say the fruit you long for is gone from you. That's odd because floods destroy the crops. So the fruit is literally gone. All your luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry out. What I just said comes after that. I need to figure out how to get the comments in this again. What's up, man? What's up, weed man? So, Revelation 18 is about when God destroyed Babylon with weather because, well, whether you believe in God or however you want to see it, there's a balance in this world, and as much as we hate evil, that some of it has to exist, but it can never get, the balance can't be disrupted. The earth cleanses itself and takes it, it's its own stewardess. You're never going to be the earth's steward, but whatever's going on, it's been designed to cleanse itself and do everything. So even if you don't believe in God, you could believe that the negative energy, it kills these people, or they kill themselves. They bring upon their own thing. And describing how weather destroys all these wicked places, it's that's a little harder to explain, but you can still kind of hit some of it with science. When you build really tall stuff, it's just common sense that that's going to get leveled in the next big disaster, which always comes. But the earth kind of prevents the humans from building too big of an ant mound because it will always flood. It will always split apart. So you have all the truthers talking about, well, they're keep manipulating the weather. It's Ruminati manipulating weather. And the odd thing is that the truthers are the tinfoil hatters with Bibles, and they constantly want to use the Bible to tell you how to think, but they never say God has done anything for them. Why is God neglecting them? God has never helped most of these people. Maybe he helped Alex Jones become really rich and become a successful deceiver and con artist, obsessed with hiring women for their looks and their tits so they can better deceive males, by turning off the male brain. I'm not sure. It's a little complex, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But you never hear them saying God did anything, but they're the ones telling you that God controls Earth and you got to worship Him and you got to worship this special God that they created. And only when something happens in their favor, it's God. And it's like, in reality, like the book they're reading from says, even when bad things happen, it's God controlling the bad people. And like that is the answer to many of the atheist questions, like why does God allow bad things to happen? It's like, well, He's using evil to build, and then the non-evil benefit from that just as well, but they don't have to live with the suffrage of guilt, and the evil will be punished eventually for that. So they're constantly blaming everything on Illuminati, and according to the conspiracy theorists with Bibles, if you just listen to them, it would sound like their God's helpless and He's never done anything in the world at all and has never done anything. And that's that. Like, maybe, I mean, they hardly even quote the Bible properly. The only time they ever want to quote the Bible is when they want to talk anti-homosexuality. Like, pretty much everything you're taught about the Bible is God hates gay people and He must love everyone else. But that's like that's like quite far from the truth. Every time I look at it, at these verses about anti-homosexuality, He's like crushing a population of savages. And they craftily omit that from all these discussions as if, what's up, Blue Blazer? They craftily omit, I can't see that under the, okay, yes I can. They craftily admit that He's talking about this, they're talking about this, like crushing merchants who have been profiteering off savagery, or just people who want to commit murder. And they're like, oh, well, just taking it in the butt is the important part. And I think that's because, well, they're the merchants. They are the ones profiteering off this. Alex Jones profiteers off this stuff. He's quite rich from selling out. I'm sure that studio didn't 100% come from his money bomb, although I'm sure some of his money did. But I'm sure he was paid off. I mean, even me, even little old me, whoever I am to these people, they've came in my life and given me money. I mean, they've literally raised me in some circumstances. This bloodline has. So, at some points I'm like, well, that's enough. I gotta stop taking your free handouts, like, because I'm feeling like guilty about, taking it. But Alex Jones doesn't. He just moves on and on. He's like, ooh, I've got Tangy Tangerine this month. Oh, they're on to Tangy Tangerine. Let's sell them Super Male Vitality, because clearly I'm on stuff that makes you like a man. And so buy it today. It's like, this is what a man looks like. And it talks here in Revelation 18 about basically how everyone is so sad that the empire is upset, and that it has been upset by nature. And like, you can see that in my recent video. The liberals were like talking about how bad the other nations are, and America just needs a little help. It's like, I don't really think that that's a realistic accusation that America is better than these other people. I don't know what goes on inside China. I've looked, and their government keeps that censored. Now, why is their government doing that? My first thought is the Asians would keep their population safe from the USA empire, which controls the world, and they're smart enough people to understand, like, they've been through feudal times. They've ran their own empires. They're smart enough to understand that the information is the main tool of the empire. So I can easily write the China's slaving its own people off is they have no other choice, because if they don't treat their people like they're really strict, that they'll never stand up to the empire. And they really are one of the last countries that the empire, they're like, the empire is scared as shit of China now. Now they've manipulated them and stolen 14 trillion or so from them, but as far as actual confrontation, they're really scared of these people for some reason. I can't say for sure why, but it's probably got a lot to do with this, with their ability to think. They can probably pull through very well. They don't just sell themselves for smoke and mirrors. And there's the propaganda includes Russia into the BRIC nations, but I don't know. Ever since the Bolshevik takeover, I don't think Russia's been the Russians. So I don't think that. I think that's like part of the propaganda to brainwash you that they're working together. And I think deep down inside, China's rulers probably know that they're alone. And then they say, the Russians are evil too. It's like, well, I don't know what's going on in Russia either, but don't our owners control Russia, so it's the same people? It doesn't really mean they're worse than us. It doesn't mean they're better than us. If they're the same people, it means they're the same people, and that's like our fault, because that's our nation out of control. Uh, you know, bullying these people, but at this point it seems like it's a fake bullying. The Cold War never went hot because the Cold War was already over by the time they told us it started. The Bolshevik slaughter already happened, so the takeover had already happened. And it's just like, it's one of those things where they point, they're like, hey, look, there's war over here, and they've actually got the sword in this hand instead, and there's war over there. So I don't buy into this that every other nation is shit and has nothing to offer, and USA is the best there ever is and ever will be. That's national propaganda. And even the liberals are behind that. So like, calling yourself a nationalist is weird, because like what people want to see as nationalism is the people caring for their nation and caring for the people of their nation, but it's displayed really, the actual nationalism going on is just America is number one and America does everything. It's like that's all that's required to be part of the empire, really, is to just say, hey, America's number one. Like, the people who come here, like, they act like they're against the immigration, but like, most of the people who want to come to America know what's up, and they're willing to pay the price. They're willing to sell out the nation they came from to be part of it. So everyone mourns, over the loss of the empire. When Rome falls, the world kind of mourns, because they all lose benefits from having all the roads leading to Rome in a time when roads were really needed, and the empire was kind of needed. But that's what this is describing. Revelation 18, it starts out, after this, I saw another angel coming down from the heaven. He had great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his splendor. With a mighty voice he shouted, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, She has become a dwelling for demons, a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Now, right there, it's describing how this happens with the empires. The world bands with the empire. Well, if you don't, Gaddafi, you get Gaddafiized. You just get killed. You get Hitlerized. I'm not too sure how accurate that is to portray him in a light as such, but it's possibly accurate. Um, he was he was right on a couple points, but I think like the nationalists we see now, he actually, cared for these people and helped them. So I think that was wrong. And there's lots of rumors he escaped as well, and he killed a lot of his own people in the process. But you pretty much have to do that if you actually oppose empire. That would really happen as well. Just like, I mean, the war against Gaddafi's people was going on for since then, since before World War II, because Palestine is Syria. They don't want to really tell you that, so they push this. I'd love to know who started recalling Palestine, because it wasn't called that. They're right when they say that. When the detractors say that Palestine doesn't exist, they were right. It was part of Syria. But cutting it off and calling it Palestine instead of part of Syria actually helps the offensive to take it over, because if you told people we're taking over part of Syria, that would sound more brutal, more offensive, like maybe not an intelligent move. But if you just say it's Palestine, or if you say it was Burger Town, or whatever you want to call it, then you're like, oh, it's just some little place. It's not a big deal. But in reality, Syria's a little bit bigger mass than Palestine is told to us it is. And so I believe they willingly go with that propaganda for that simple fact that when you divide it, it it sounds better in the minds of the citizens than, if you want to go after China, we wouldn't say we're bombing China today. And if they were really going to attack Russia, they wouldn't say we're going to attack Russia. They would be like, we're attacking. They would just name a small town because it sounds more acceptable. And it's all about word games and manipulating the human psyche. Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, I didn't think that increased. So the people have all of the world have all partaken in this, and when they do that, it benefits from them, and they don't want to lose the benefits. Just like when I approach the liberals, or even when I just approach people on the street, they don't really want to hear anti-war propaganda anymore. At one point, there's a turning point where you can't actually participate in that, because you realize that, yeah, I'm benefiting a lot from this, and many of the other nations are benefiting from Gaddafiizing people in their nations. To what extent, that's probably hard to discuss, because you don't know for sure, and the media is always lying. So, and no nation would honestly tell the truth, as Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, that look strong when you're weak, and you appear weak when you are strong. It's about not letting these other people take over. Just like China might be censoring their own people to keep their people safe and isolated from Western propaganda. So you have all these people benefiting from this, and they're all upset. Like, all the American citizens are benefiting from whatever the empire does, because eventually there'll be a fallout and a price to pay, like there was during the Depression era. And it's it's going to be really hard for them to suck more money off of dead citizens. They already, during the Depression era, introduced the Social Security money siphoning scheme, which almost no one who contributes to that benefits from it. So, it was openly admitted that it was to secure funds for a time when they didn't have funds. It's basically like, hey, you guys are working right now, give us some money, and in 20 years you get payment. No one instantly started receiving Social Security funds when this stuff was set up. It wasn't designed for that. People back then were probably dying before this age even existed. So it was much a scam. During that same time, they also started stealing people's gold, because gold was the value at that time. So the government had no other choice. They couldn't just print money at that time, and people were like, "Oh yes, American dollars, we love them." They had to secure the gold to back the money. But I mean, reality, when they secure this gold, what do they do with it? They ship it off to like Rothschild Israel or something, or a gold vault somewhere. I wouldn't think that they would place Israel isn't real at the center of propaganda, and it actually be the center of their operations. That would be a really big flaw. Even though they base 6,000 years of propaganda around Israel being what they're after isn't real, whatever. You know, that area of land, even though they've done that, and maybe it was a fatal flaw in their design, it doesn't make sense that that's where the gold vaults would be. But wherever that gold is they stole during the Depression era, I'm sure it's not in the vaults at Fort Knox. Ron Paul wanted to. Of course, I'm not saying he's trustworthy, because the libertarians all surrounding him are proven to be the bloodline, the Illuminati bloodline. But his calls to audit it basically were all shut down, because either because it's propaganda and they want you to chase a non-existent bogeyman, or it make you look stupid when you finally do it, and they'll be like, "Oh, look, the gold's here," but in reality, is that gold's probably disappeared and moved somewhere else, and probably not to isn't real. There's probably some other secure location where the elite truly hide, because it isn't real. It seems to be designed to take flack, as opposed, and you wouldn't want your real base to be the actual target of flack, and they definitely designate it to take flack. So all these people are benefiting from it. But in America, like, no one is talking about how maybe it's God that is destroying the nation with weather. Maybe it's the cycle that of the energy that happens to the empire. And to me, it's pretty realistic that it would happen, because I mean, they've even written it's going to happen. They've written it has happened, and they've written it's going to happen again. And the world being on the cycle it's on, it's like a very repetitive scheme. It is a cycle. That's how it renews. That's how it refreshes. Everything's a cycle. The cycle of life and death keeps the energy flowing in the world, the the mind, the universe, whatever you see is existing. This cycle of energy. This cycle is almost impossible to deny it exists, because you see it over and over. And in fact, that death is almost solely a reminder that the cycle exists. Like, when you try to think why and how could death exist, the logic that can be gained from that is simply that it's part of the cycle. So the cycle seems to be everything, and everything seems to be the cycle. So the empire always falls, and apparently bad nations always have issues, and this is written about many times, and that makes sense even if you don't come from some sort of religion or creation based theories. The gathering of the populations in a small space will ultimately lead to some sort of larger scale death. As if an earthquake hits you and you just have a tribe of 6 people living for hundreds of miles, then you're likely going to get like up to 6 deaths. If an earthquake hits you and you live in an area that's highly populated by like 2 million people, you're going to get probably more than 6 deaths. It's just logic how the energy masses gather together, and then they pull more of the energy in around them and alter the world around them. Even if you're not believing in a God who might look over the earth, and I don't even think that's needed. I think the earth has been carefully designed to cycle itself. If it was designed, which it seems to be pretty intelligently designed, then it's designed to cleanse itself. It doesn't need a father looking over it. It's kind of like if you had a good father who raised you, that father probably taught you how to do something for yourself. And maybe he taught you how to fish. Maybe he taught you how to, do carpentry or something like that. You don't need the father anymore. It will go on, and then you will instill such work into your own child. So you don't need him to raise your children or their children or their children. He's long gone, but the cycle and the watchfulness keeps moving on. But humans see themselves as some arrogant, superior design, and they are. They definitely are arrogant. But at the same time, the energy of the world is much more powerful than the humans, and the humans just are sometimes theorized as just simply part of the energy, and everything is the energy. So when you gather large groups, it kind of doesn't matter if it's good or bad. They can change the atmosphere around them. The heating of cities due to the large population gatherings actually prevents tornadoes from entering the large city. Like, our city doesn't see tornadoes because, from what I've read, it kind of creates like a heat shield, like one of those movies they had, Weather Shield. Well, a large city on itself creates a heat shield, and that can keep away tornadoes. So I theorize that the energy created by such large masses probably attract negative ions and negative energy because of so many things that happen. They excessively salt the earth, and they excessively use up the water supplies in those areas, and then no vegetation and stuff can grow. So like they talk about California's drought. It's like, well, they live right there on water, so there's really only one logical reason for why it could be a drought there, and that's because I mean, the most impacting factor is most likely it has a super large population. It is literally like the center of the earth. It's the real isn't real. New York is the banking sector, and it's the motherland, they call it. But Hollywood designated itself as the leader of the world, and it is definitely viewed that way. So it earns that. It makes that. It actually says two times. It says double. It says give back to her as she is given, pay her back double for what she has done, pour her a double portion of her own cup. Give her as much torment and grief as the glory and luxury she gave herself. But it's definitely like double what they've been giving out is a hell of a lot if you add it all up. So you think what makes you say Chicago is the slave capital? Go ahead and describe that for a minute. Yeah, it does change a little bit, but double is quite a lot if you add up everything they've given out. Say tell me in the comments here, David, why you say Chicago is the slave capital. I'm gonna grab something to drink. Oh, dude, what did I do? Very interesting. very interesting because my theory why they are allowed to switch the drug war from marijuana to opiates is because it seems to be popular in the black culture now to use opiates. A lot of the good rap, the underground rap, like you can see Little Peep died from that. So did Tom Petty. They died because they were being forced to take these unregulated doses because the government's overpriced it. But it's clear to me that the blacks are shifting to using opiates, and I would think they would want them to use opiates because they got a little uppity in the 80s and before that, trying not to be slaves. And now you're saying they're selling it on every corner, and in the ghetto, and so you're just basically backing up what I was already theorizing from what was happening around the nation. And you're right. And from what you're saying, it's a slave capital. Like that's what I was thinking you were saying. This is what David said. I'm going to read it for those who are just listening, as I do a lot. I put on you guys' videos and just listen. Dave says, all the slaves came from New Orleans, biggest African American population outside of Africa. It's hard to explain, but heroin is sold outside in every corner since they tore down the high rises. He's saying he can feel the energy. And that sounds like crazy people stuff until you really start to understand that it's real. That there's more than just you sitting here doing nothing, watching TV. There's something else going on. He then goes on to say every week a baby's shot in the head. In Chicago, you either sell, use, or both for square miles. Tons of blacks use heroin. You call heroin blows? That's weird, because in the 80s, blow was... I mean, obviously, they made the movie called Blow, so it's... That used to be for cocaine. But cocaine's a hell of a drug to have your slave class on. It's might make your slave class a little more energetic, might make them a little more aggressive, might make them a little more intelligent if they're using drugs that give them energy. He says you can see lines as the cops watch. Yeah. No doubt. Blows his dime heroin bags. Interesting. Yeah, see, I'm out of the street culture for about 10 years. I'm out of the human culture for like 10 years. So I don't know much of the new terminology. They change the terminology every 10 years for like everything. So the drug terminology changes. Like they have dabs now, and everyone swears up and down that's new stuff. And they have vaping now, and it's just weird how those are in my, like where I'm from in the 90s, that was something different. You know, in the early 2000s, that was something different. But dabs is supposedly brand new, but this is the cycle of language. They erase things and they recycle it. Just like everything, like I said before about the cycle, everything's on a cycle. It cycles and recycles, and it just comes out with a new, fresh face. Everything is on this cycle. Probably, I even apparently seem to be on some sort of cycle, although it seems to be harder for me to understand myself than others, so maybe other people can tell me my cycle better. But I definitely go on cycles, like all sorts of stuff. Like I go on sleep and wake cycles. I go on eating cycles. I go on fasting cycles. But internally, and like I guess even my breathing, even in and out, could be considered a cycle. It's not necessarily a complex tricycle that would require a circle diagram. It could just be in, out, in, out. I mean, everything is on some sort of flow here, and that changing of the drugs and their names is a cycle. I try to write that off as they change the names of the drugs and what they're called so the government doesn't catch on to it. But every time I discuss cycles, it's generally because when I discuss the word cycles, it's generally because they erase the past. They want to erase it. It slows down the humans to change the language. Like when we look back at these old books from 2,000 years ago, we can't really understand what they're saying because they use different words and we don't know those. We don't know. They use the same words often, but that doesn't necessarily mean it means the same thing 2,000 years ago, because it doesn't mean the same thing 20 years ago. Like you're saying here, blows is a 10 bag of H, and to me, like, and people in the 80s, blow is Johnny Depp, selling cocaine. Good morning, Maria. Yeah, I didn't know blows was a term used in the 70s in Chicago. I mean, but clearly you've seen like you know that generally that's a cocaine term. But yeah, a lot of these terms that cycle in and out, they might have existed somewhere else at one point, meaning something else, but they're not brought to the cover. Kind of like how Khazaria and Zionist and Illuminati, Republican, they're on a cycle. Like it exists here, but it's not called that, until it cycles back to time to call it that again, or until it cycles into being time to call it again. Like libertarianism wasn't just invented, but its cycle came around to where the word was used 24/7 as if libertarianism was just invented, but it was not at all. Yeah, I actually, you said everyone just got extended clip for Glocks with 30 shots. That makes the slave population very dangerous. I could easily see why the government would allocate some money to appease those people like Trump is to rehab the projects. I don't even think it's necessarily about rehabbing the projects. I think that money's about getting contractors in there. Contractors, and I do mean of all sorts, not just construction workers, but contractors can hide among other contractors, and they want to get in there and control those people to some extent. But most of the, I mean, you really weren't too off topic. I mean, I started out the video with the discussion, but I know when I do a live video, it's not going to go much further than that. And it's not like I'm here to sit here and reread the Bible to you guys. I'm never going to do that. I'm not one of those people who needs to cram this stuff down your throat. I can show you what's going on today, and you can make a good judgment, whatever judgment you want to make based upon that. So, you don't have to be sorry for being off topic, Maria. It's very un-American of you to say you're sorry, Maria. Sometimes you get treated badly if you apologize around here. Like, they definitely see that as a sign of weakness. It's like, yeah, we can take advantage of that person. Yeah, Revelation is the newspaper today. It is. Like, I keep looking at these truther channels, and they're like, the Illuminati's destroying America with weather. And it's like, wait a minute. Revelations is talking about Babylon being destroyed with weather. So it's literally what's been going on the past 6 months. I've been trying to I've been waiting for it to stop. It's like, wait a minute, is that going to stop? I'm just being crazy. It's not God destroying the empire, but the empire, it's being hit with some bad weather, right? And right when they're talking about ramping up war, new wars too. But when are they not? So that's kind of a moot point. But I'd love to see someone argue that point. They just haven't gotten to arguing that. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say you should follow any religion either, because they're all twisted. Even these pages I have open, it's called the New International Version. And it's like, wait a minute. Doesn't the Bible say it's only for a small group of people? And how is it going to be new? It's like the 10,000 version. And one of the versions, they have removed keywords. And that cycle over 2,000 years has completely changed what any of this means. But I do find that sometimes some of these people in religions are trying to be good people. And it also seems to date back to early history. But we're talking about history again. And history is just made up on a large scale. It's kind of like saying Alex Jones's history, which they will. They'll say Alex Jones's history if you allow them. But he's actually, part of their bloodline. So he's not any different than the people he claims to oppose. Rev 2939. I wish it was easier to go through these pages and pull up some older stuff. And what's odd too is in Revelation, this is being spoken by one of the angels, and this is like pretty much what I've been saying too. I've been saying, it begins by saying, after this I saw another angel coming down from the heaven. He had great authority, and the earth was illuminated by his splendor. With a mighty voice he shouted. And it's practically, and it's not like I've read all these stories before or remember them if I did. It's practically saying the stuff I've been saying. It's like, why are you guys crying for this empire? Like, I don't cry for USA when you're like, oh, dear, one of us died. It's like, there was a school shooting, I can't believe. And it's like, I'm not deceived by any of this. I can't not believe that there was a school shooting. I'm sometimes just like, how come there's not more school shootings the way I see people act? And they try to tell us that the school shootings are done by people who are bullied. And it's like, well, what about the bullies? Like, they don't shoot people ever? Yeah, I actually know 2-9. And when I put that in, it brought up a person I used to follow, but G Plus isn't around no longer. No point to following that. But I haven't seen 3-9. I don't. It's possible I haven't. Anyways, maybe I should look that up before I say that. Says, behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, but are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. But I guess I would have to read the whole thing to fully know what's going on there. Angel in the Church of Philadelphia. So, where was Philadelphia at in those times? But more similarities here. I'll review that when I can. Um, it says here in Revelations that when this stuff happens, that they're calling out, "Come out of the nations, so that you don't receive the gifts the empire is about to receive." Me personally, though, I kind of want to be here. I mean, I did. It was weird, like, when I first started talking about this, like, this specific topic, how it just seems like the weather keeps coming, and, I was actually asking for that. I was actually asking for some help to slow down the nation because they were like, I knew they were about to rob me, and they did. So, I mean, it helped me in some ways, but at one point the robbery still came through. Slowing down their resources helps all of us. If we slow down the internal infrastructure, it might raise the price of foods to have the crops flooded. But overall, it slows down the government, and they can't consume blood at the same rate they used to when they're trying to heal wounds. So it's saying here that during those times when Babylon was being destroyed, that they were being called out of Babylon. And I can't help but think I am too, because I was confronted once by some foreigners, and and for some reason I was just speaking with them, becoming friends with them, and for some reason they said people in other lands would love me. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? It was like kind of like one of those weird things, like when people talk to you and it's like, it's a message that you should pay attention to. Because it's not like exactly meaning anything, but you're like, what does that really mean? And then recently, when I first started talking about how the weather seems to be destroying America, from the fires to the freezing to now the floods, one of the first comments I got was talking about leaving America. And I've seen several people talk about this. I don't run in fear. Like I'm not scared of anything. I'm not scared of dying. Like rain the fire upon my head if I'm surrounded by my enemies. Get rid of us all. I'm not that big of a piece of the puzzle. And it talks about how plagues are overtaking them, and it all makes me rethink how they say the medicine and the drugs and the water is being poisoned and designed to kill people. It all makes me rethink what exact goal that is achieving, when it's these truthers who are the ones who end up never giving any credit to their God, and never even pondering the idea that God perhaps has placed a curse upon these people for their actions. When it says, in fact, their book is highly detailed in many places about God specifically destroying people when they get out of hand. And it like discredits much of what they say when you spend years looking into the truth or propaganda, and you see that they almost never once give credit to God or glory to God. And they almost don't even like start their videos saying, hey, thanks God for the video. Like, they never once suggest God is in control, other than using a Bible or some other tool to control you. Which as I say, any group you create, you can create something great, and then 2 years later, the rest of the world will want that because it's so great, but they don't have the drive and the values required of such a group. Even if it's a bad group, even if you have a really bad group and you're like the best killers and murderers and robbers, like, there will be lesser people who aren't as good killers or murderers, or be like, yeah, I can make some money doing that, and within a couple of years, the group will no longer be that same group. It'll be a completely different group. That almost makes a good positive argument for people like Mormons and stuff taking over, and that is kind of like the Mormons' argument that people have strayed away and they don't really care about that. But I don't know too much about them, so I can't really judge any other separate group. I can say the most popular religions right now, though, are political religions, which without a god, without calling their leader a god, they're cults. But if it's popular enough, if the TV wants it to be popular, it doesn't get called a cult. It only gets called a cult if they want to attack it. So stuff like libertarianism doesn't get called a cult. Republicanism or liberalism doesn't get called a cult. Communism doesn't get called a cult. It's acceptable science. Atheism doesn't ever get called a cult. They're the acceptable belief sets of modern time. So anything outside that can get called a cult, but they have to have their like 5 to 12 belief sets that are trendy and acceptable. Sabatius Sevi. Interesting. So that's how you spell that name, Sevi, I always hear. It sounds like Se, S-E, or like something like that, but you're spelling it S-V-E-E, so it's a silent E. It's a non-existent E after the S. So Sevi. It just, the S is pronounced Se. Se instead of S. Okay, or because in English it's generally S, but apparently in this, that is what Hebrew, so the S is Sabatia Sevi. I know I'm saying the Sabatia wrong, slightly, but the last part, Sevi, I'm right? Because I've heard that before. Yeah, he said he was a Messiah, so people have repeated that several times. That must be in the Hebrew. Is the S in there, in that language, always Se? Is it always Se? Because here in English, it's always like S, like sleep. Sleep, it isn't sleep, it's sleep. Pastor Anderson. Yeah, I've seen Pastor Anderson before. Anderson is what's that called? Ukrainian, Khazarian, right? He's Khazarian. He said in his DNA result video. But the odd thing is, what? Pastor Anderson looks, I swear that's my brother's child. Looks just like him. And he kind of looks just like my brother, so. But he really looks just like my brother's child. Although I've seen a recent picture and he looks a little bit different in the picture, but when I see him in real life, he didn't. I was like, wow, dude, Pastor Anderson is like shifting to child form to become my brother's son. No, he did a DNA test. He did a DNA test himself, and he talked about that. Go watch his DNA test video. I've seen most of his videos up until a certain year. Up until that video, I've seen all of his videos, I think. After that, I was like, Yeah, he's a Baptist, but his DNA is traced to the Khazarians. He said that, not me, but he's also going by their DNA test, but he doesn't really refute that or anything. I don't know how much of their DNA tests I trust either. Yeah, I notice everyone seems to be told there's something, and maybe everyone is a little mixed. 'Cause the world's old enough that everyone probably did mix to some extent. And their original story says everyone's the same anyways. A little confusing there back and forth on it gets to be to the point where you just kind of believe in what you choose to believe in. How long ago did you think you made up Ashkenazi? Because the Ashkenazis, I know I've heard of that for years. I never heard the Jewsies, the Jewzis. I thought I made that up. See, when I first got into this stuff, the David Icke's channel and most anyone who talked of any of this stuff was liberal. So the alt-right hadn't came yet and taken the stuff over. So calling everyone a Nazi was like really deeply ingrained into the political climate surrounding anti-Zionism. But getting the Republicans to change is simply as easy as showing them the Bible generally. Unlike Alex Jones wants people to think people are sometimes open. At least they were. I don't. It seems like people have gotten a lot worse in the past decade. Like I said, with them liberals being pro-USA, that's just weird. I mean, that is weird. I never knew I'd see that happen. And I know liberals love guns, so not much is a stretch for me. Yeah, I actually spell it Jewzis. Jewzi. So it's Nazi, but with Jew. But I know everyone does JOO because you'll get banned. And that's why I changed my title from Jewsies and Nazis to Jewish leaders, because they have a real hard time attacking me if I use Bible language. They basically start to seal their own fate if I use terms from the Bible like Jewish leaders, and they can't. There's certain terms I avoid using because I know I'm using mind control of sorts, but it's like impossible for me not to do it. So I just try to keep it to a minimum. And at the same time getting banned for using certain stuff, it leaves me no other option to do certain things, like use terms like Jewish leaders rather than say Jews, or whatever I want to do it, or like how I spelled the Jewsies, Jewzi. Like that probably just gets auto banned. Most of the comments, most of the places on the internet have auto filters, and even they've moved it to video games, because video games were like a safe place where we could discuss stuff. And now if you say JEW or FAG, like you get like banned from the game, like banned for 20 minutes at first, then 30 minutes, then an hour, and maybe completely removed from the game. Yeah, that's odd considering that the Bible claims to be a Jewish book too. So they play that as much as they can on any side, from any side, any angle they can. Pretty much they play everything. I mean, that's how you have to do it in life. You have to play everything at the angle you want it to go at, and you see things from, and you understand how to play that angle from. It's like playing a game of pool. Like, do you understand how to do a trick shot with the pole with the pull stick behind your head like that? Do you prefer like that? Do you prefer behind your back? So like whatever angles and know-how you have is how you play it. And so if the Bible works as a seven-edged sword for them, they'll try to use it from all seven angles. And then if you try to use it to help you, they'll be like, you're an anti-Semite. But it's really hard for them to walk out in the streets and be like, oh, the Bible is anti-Semitic, because the propaganda they've overlaid on people's minds is that the Bible is Jewish and it's good and you should follow it. And, well, to some extent, I guess, right? That might not be so much true right now, but it kind of was when I was first born into this world. Or maybe that's people around me and I'm a little biased, but yeah, but they'll play it however they want. They'll play it however they can, basically, and that's how you can trap them, is by first seeing how they can play what you're going to do, and then making your decisions based upon that. Kind of like when I confronted InfoWars, I could have played a game, and I could have went over and this and that, but basically, I boiled the argument down to one point: Alex Jones's bloodline, and because any other angle of attack would have eventually led to that being the only option and possibly me looking dumb. So I just went straight to that rather than allowing them to have their 7 different angles they could pull something off of. And when I bring up that his children are of this bloodline, the only possible option they have is you're attacking his family. And so be it. So be it. Yeah, he really needs... Jones is a fat goof. I agree on that. He really needs to take his own super male vitality. I think he's probably afraid of it, though. He might be afraid of what that does if he takes it. But I believe all this stuff on this earth was created for some purpose, and you can probably use it in moderation and enhance your human experience. But clearly it's designed not to use in over moderation. Yeah, with Jonestein, the only question I have left is what his bloodline is. Like, did he sell out through the Purim blood mixing ritual, or is he always part of that? And I think he's just another continuation in a long line, just like Donald Trump. He's just another continuation. I mean, before Donald Trump, there was the Barak, 12th century BC ruler of Israel, Barak Ehud, Prime Minister of Israel during 9/11 attacks. Many other Baraks in Israel. So, once you see the link, and then that leads to thinking, we see this in Hollywood too. Like the InfoWars reporter I confronted getting married into the bloodline. Someone on my page intelligently laid out that she could be one of them too. And it's like, I totally overlooked that. It's because like, she's an info bimbo. She's designed to make you stop thinking. That's the point of it. That's the point of the info bimbos, is to make you stop thinking. So, you see that and you start thinking, is Arnold Schwarzenegger one of them, or did he just marry into their bloodline? And you only see the proof that Trump's kids, Alex Jonesstein's kids, Arnold's kids are the bloodline because they've married in. But in reality, it seems that they wouldn't put Goyim into those positions of such high attainment. But we don't know. But that's the final question I have for Alex Jones: is he one of them or not? And you have to like catch his face, or his voice might be enough, but it helps to have the face and the voice. When you're confronting any of these people, never accidentally give yourself away with what they're about to be confronted with. Like, I was just talking with someone yesterday who I now suspect, because every time I go around them, they drag one of these people into my life with them. And they act, looking back at my life, I realize I've been raised by these people. And then the only people who are not them, who are really close to me, I think were Italians. So that makes me question what Italian is as well. And that doesn't help when I have the InfoWars video of her Italian boyfriend refusing to say he's not Jewish, but he looks pretty Jewish. And of course, we all know the Italians do look Jewish. And often it is the Italian. Like Judge Napolitano is the only Goyim in the libertarian propaganda besides Ron Paul. And that really, cast doubt onto the Italians when you can bring that up so much. But it just seems that they would be of the same bloodline, and that would help them in many ways. They claim there's a separate species and a superior species as well, so that also helps describe how they can possibly attain this level of takeover that Alex Jones does. It's hard to sort through. Like, there's a lot of white nationalist propaganda talking about how great whites are and whites have done this and that, but it's really hard to sort through that when I look at that, and every white empire is probably not whites at all. It's probably the so-called Jews, directing and controlling them. Even Germany was the empire at the time, basically, and it was the most advanced. They actually didn't go on the worldwide rampage empire is known for, so they can't actually take that title, until WW2. So they can't actually take that title, but he said himself that they controlled the nation, and of course they did, and then that's the basis of the war, as they were being uncovered. And so it's hard to tell who built what and who's capable of what, because they seem to be so intermixed there. And even with the Asia, you can discuss that they seem to be intermixed, but the whole censorship of Asia makes it hard for me to know enough about that place to comment on. And again, it's not America, and I live in USA. USA is what's important to me, not Iran, not Iraq. That's a whole sign you might be a globalist, is if you actually care what one of these other nations are doing. Like, go ahead and let them do what they want. What are you saying about the long hair, Maria? Yeah, that's a good link there, Maria. Maria says the mafia is Jewish controlled. That's a good link to And it's right out there in the open, and it's even been discussed that the real mafia is actually not Italian. But that's David Duke saying those words, the real mafia is not Italian. And he's a little bit of a deceptor himself. So those words make you want to separate Italians and Jews. But at the same time, when you questioning and analyzing this specific thing about who are the Italians, would be inseparable if they were the same people. Oh yeah, okay. The long hair, her long hair. That girl reporter's long hair. That's also not straight, isn't it? That's another sign too that you might be one of them. That's one of the things that makes the Italians suspect too. Is the non-straight hair. Like there's one group on Earth generally that seems to have non-straight hair who is not Jewish blooded, and we call them black people, even though technically most of them are brown. They get the label black. I suppose maybe before they mixed a lot, they all might have had a darker skin, because they kind of do. You see on National Geographic and stuff like that, they seem to have a little bit darker skin. And in places like Babylon, I suppose most of the people in those nations are mixed, because it's eventually a nation where all the slaves have been brought together and then they do whatever. And then, of course, when they invade nations from the start, their lust, not just their bloodlust, but their sexual lust takes over, and then they rape the people that they were intending to genocide. But something about the empire mentality, they leave the slaves alive and don't completely genocide them, and then they breed with them. So from the start, lots of mixing was probably going on in this nation, and of course that's well known. A lot of black people claim to be mixed with these people, so that could explain why they're more brown than black. Yeah, Maria says exactly the same way they made movies that the Muslims were always the terrorists. So Muslims are terrorists, and Italians are mafia, and Irish are drunk idiots. What island are you from, Maria? I don't think I know anything about any island except for Haiti. I know a little bit about. Haiti's an island, right? The islands are generally not. No, I don't think I know anything about Cyprus. I didn't even know that was an island. I've heard of it in ancient Greek stories. Yes, that's looks like it's. Oh yeah. Okay, so I don't know anything really about the island, but I know a little bit about the oceans that surround you. There's supposedly lots of oil reserves in those oceans. You are the land to the west of Israel, the only land, because there's water to the rest of it, west of isn't real, and then there's Cyprus over there. But some of the some of the war is over oil resource is for securing resources, and there is supposedly a large amount of oil out there, and I suppose that would mean under Cyprus you have a lot of oil as well. But other than that, I don't know anything about the actual land. Why don't you tell me about it? And again, I don't trust. I wouldn't trust much of what I hear in American media if they did tell me anything about it, and I would only trust the people who come from there. Like one of my friends is from Egypt, and she's told me more that I believe and know about Egypt in just a few sentences than I would ever know or believe from the USA media. When did the ATMs stop working in Cyprus? They had a bank failure. You sure there wasn't a stage, something that happened because possibly they didn't want to give up their resources or control their land? Cyprus looks like it would be a good place for an American military base. Is that one of the places we have a military base at? Oh, British forces. You have British military bases in Cyprus. It's just the former empire. It's still part of it. Just because it's called the former empire doesn't mean it's any less of the empire. And just because our history is we fought with the Brits doesn't mean we are any less of who those people once were. Apparently there's 3,500 Brits there for military purposes. Yeah, that's because that's a strategic land placement for attacks. It helps actually to not take over Cyprus on the outside because, like Vietnam, if they use Vietnam, it was used like as a. Anyways, the places that are in military operations, there are the places where you launch your operation from, and then there are places you want to attack. And there, of course, it would make no sense for them to be the same location. And when you're surrounded by water, you're really safe from invasion. So it might be hard. That's how the UK operated, I assume, because it was just impossible for anyone to get to it. But once they took over enough land that they had bases operational, so it was no longer them trying to take over people from the sea. The sea is a great defense. And Cyprus is right there in the middle of all this war, and it's surrounded by this great defense called the sea. So it makes it a optimal position to put American or Empire UK military bases, and they can deploy troops from there. They can deploy artillery. They could deploy whatever they want, whatever they actually have in Cyprus. If they have an airstrip, which they probably would have an airstrip, they would want it, even if they don't have it. But they of course have docks there that they would use. The military base, is it on a dock, an airstrip, or both? No, it's in warfare, the sea is really, it's good for artillery attack, but it's not good for invasion. You can't deploy troops right there from a ship and think you're safe. That ship can just be sunk, and ships are extremely costly. It's possible, like, I didn't actually add the funds up, but uh, I think I think jets are probably the most expensive fighter jets and just military jets, but the ships seem to be a rare commodity, so rare that China will buy used junk ships like we've sold them ships that have been rusted out and almost completely useless, but they buy that ship for several reasons: to learn the technology, to reverse engineer it, and of course we sabotage anything we sell them. So certain things they probably don't learn, but probably hard not to learn. And they buy that so they can strictly have a fleet. Um, you can do things with naval combat, but the invasion from sea to land doesn't work very well. So when you're surrounded by water, you are defended against invasion. You now they can bombard you with artillery very effectively, but it takes a high percentage of personnel to land and take that area back. That's almost like almost every time you see a war, it's a war between two nations who have land connecting. You almost never hear of war any other way. Hell, even this little tiny North Korea place we haven't invaded, and what do they have? They have water on many of their sides, right? Let me, before I'm pulling this out my ass, let me go ahead and pull this up so I remember where it's at. That is what makes Hawaii uh, useful. If you could easily overtake Hawaii, it wouldn't be as useful as it is. But it's a lookout position that can't really just be invaded and taken over fast. It could in comparison, but it would require a lot of manpower and resources. You can easily lose a lot of personnel when you dock a ship to land all those people, especially if you have a ship full of combat carriers. That also looks suspicious too if a ship carrying tanks and armored personnel carriers is coming near your land. It's very costly to make these large ships move around in the ocean. So that's why the news reports on it anytime there's any sort of naval action in the ocean. Both sides will report on it. And the other side will report on it when America does this, as if they are sure that something is going on, because they're correct that when you are doing stuff the seas are underpopulated as well compared to the land, so it's even like you see it coming faster as well. It's not only harder to take land units and deploy them from the ocean to the land, but you see it coming as well. And that's just another function of how hard it is to destroy naval units, or how easy it is to destroy naval units, but it's another function of how it's easy to not get invaded by sea, because you have to dock. Well, I mean, you could technically do it about a mile or less offshore, but they would see you, and that huge ship becomes the target. Like that ship, it's like blowing up land. Like the ship becomes the land, and so therefore it becomes a large target, large, easy to spot target. Especially if the ship is like there's a reason why aircraft carriers are stationed way outside of the land, because when you see that coming in, that's like $1 trillion ship. It doesn't matter if the ship only costs $350 billion to create. Once you load it up with those almost, like $350 billion a piece jets, that becomes like $1 trillion+ ship, and you can lose all that at once. Like even like now in sea battles, generally they're just like Hitler easily won with submarines and stuff, but it's different to have a sea battle in a sea plus air versus land battle versus having a sea to land invasion, because the transfer of land troops to the land is easily spotted, and you're surrounded. When you get off on that land, you can easily be surrounded, and you've walled yourself off with the ocean as the only place to retreat to. Let me go back through this. Okay, so David said the Haitian slave revolt led Napoleon selling Chicago to Jefferson and Louisiana Territory. I didn't know that. That ties directly into what you said earlier about it being a slave area, and that makes sense because the slaves had to be there. There's several places where the slaves gather. In fact, my city is known as a after slave city. It's actually celebrated. Well, they don't celebrate it, but some of the more educated black people have talked about this, and some of the history talks about it. But the slaves, kind of like when they ran from the South, this was like one of the main stops. I didn't know that about Louisiana, but that makes perfect sense because, Louisiana is so French influenced. So clearly that was one of the pieces of the land that the French must have been working a lot with. And also there's so many blacks there that makes sense too, that the slaves were probably taken there. Are you saying you think that that America helped the slave revolt happen so Napoleon would sell it to us? No, I don't know about Diego Garcia. I don't think so. You can go ahead and tell me. Catching up here. For anyone not watching this, just listening to it, I'm catching up to the chat. Wow, so you're saying that Cyprus is divided by a wall, north and south. Who has control over that? Like, who controls your nations? Sounds like you're in the middle of a war zone still. But then again, who's not? Every place except for USA, Europe, and Australia seem to be have someone invading their land. I guess USA and Europe has some invaders now, don't they? Yeah, and Dave said it matters. It depends. It does depend on what army you're against. But on what military you're against. I guess army wouldn't be doing any sea invasions at all. But for most nations, they don't have super huge battleships. Like that's one thing. Like you hear in the media, we're always selling our jets and stuff, but you rarely hear us selling our ships because we actually don't have like countless ships. Ships are probably one of the most expensive things to maintain in in fuel. Probably due to rust. Rusting seems to destroy the ships after like 20 years, and of course wood rot in the past would have been an issue, but you could keep anything else indoors and it not rust or deteriorate. But at the end of the day, it just matters. You could put all your forces into ships, all your money into building ships, and have the better naval advantage in some way. You can always change war around to work for you, but the general strategy is kind of a consistent thing. And until you have someone like Hitler come along and with submarines and surprises you don't know, it follows a sort of a pattern. Oh, so Maria says the Cyprus Navy carry out exercise and are trained in Israel. With Israel, they carry out exercises. So when you say they do that, is it both North and South, or is it just one side of them work with Israel? Yeah, I understand what you say, Maria. Your English isn't that bad. It's not like really bad at all. And I didn't really know it was your second language because you seem to speak pretty good. Yeah, but when Spain invaded South America with wood ships, they were like what invading native people who really had the same thing, but probably less. And it's quite possible that the wood lasts longer than metal does in the sea. I'm not sure, but we definitely seem to want to get rid of our ships when they start rusting, and people seem to be in a hurry to buy them up. I thought that was weird that people would want to buy rusted ships, but it's just a rare commodity to have super large ships. Dave said in reply to my question about what happened in Haiti and the revolt, trying to keep with that, but I gotta keep going back. He says Haitian slaves killed everyone. Then Napoleon didn't need the port of New Orleans to sell sugar because Haiti grew sugar. USA would have just stole it, so Napoleon took $1 million to help his wars in Europe. Or sounds about right. So, is there documentation showing that America was trying to bully France around? Because they seem to help. They, I mean, USA. They seem to help USA, apparently. So, would we accepted their help and then turned on them, or who turned on who? What's up, Sister Shiska? A lot more modern day dictators, but I made an argument earlier for why these other countries have to be dictatorships or something similar. And because they're in a world where they have other people coming down on their people and their nations, and they have to have a no tolerance policy. Like China does that, and they have become the biggest thorn in the West Side, and it wouldn't happen if they allowed their people to be open and free. I'm not necessarily saying that that's how you should live, but I understand why they do that. Plus, their people have a history of doing such things, so they don't mind living that way. It's kind of how they act. They follow the best leader. Shipped him off to Mauritius. I don't know where Mauritius is. You're saying they kicked out the natives of Cyprus and they shipped them to Maritus. Where is Mauritius? What direction is that from Cyprus? Yeah, but still, you would think the technology's better, but I just seen not too long ago some ships sold to China that were rusting, and I'm assuming those ships were built in no earlier than the 80s. And but we sold them because to us that's trash about with some real issues, and of course we probably put back doors in them and sabotage them, but it still gives them the technology. When we sell it to them, they can reverse engineer that. Yeah, see, in Cyprus, Cyprus may have been a naval power and once ruled the Mediterranean, just like the UK does, and the UK is an island. It being it being the island has the more defense because once they can establish a base on mainland, they can attack from there, and their main base is a little more secure. That's why in America, like the people talk about the Mexican border so much because that's like a real legit threat of invasion to these people, even though they're not. Um, I always want to use terms that the people here would use and sarcastically, but they're not uh, civilized enough to be able to raise an excellent army, but no one's scared of anyone approaching America along any of the sea because just we would eliminate them like before the hours before they even got to our shore. We would know that this ship full of personnel carriers and tanks and soldiers are coming, and the ship wouldn't make it anywhere near. I didn't know there was ghetto jeopardy. Yeah, that you say Cyprus was a power at one time. Also, it's not spoke of. I suppose that's where I know the name from. Is some sort of they were probably in power during uh, whenever the era of Greece was well known. Oh, interesting. You're making your own Jeopardy there. I should try that with people. Dude, I'm not seeing any videos of yours in my feed if you're making videos. So I'll have to go back to your channel and make sure I'm subscribed again. I remember you made videos of comedy and then driving in the car, but I don't remember seeing a Ghetto Jeopardy. Talking about doing comedy, I think. Or you were doing it, I forget. You made me want to go do that, but then I got worried that they would shut me down because I'm like pretty offensive. You know, I would be one of those comics like Carlin or the guy everyone says Alex Jones is. And then they would just like sue me. Like I write stuff online and they get pissed about that. And I make videos. That's one of my videos that got banned, was me being funny. And I was literally being sued by one of the people too I was laughing at and making people laugh at. Like I was already sued by them in like 98. So what'd you get kicked off stage for? Did you mention the special Chosenites? Oh shit. That could be true. They say in sexual talk circles that you eat pineapple and it makes you taste sweeter. But I know from like everything else, like your body puts out whatever you are, what you eat, like literally and figuratively. You are like I actually try to take in a little bit of everything, to try it like once at least, just to absorb everything in the world. You can tell, like, you know, what you eat will shape your body differently. You'll get thick and strong, or lean and strong, or not so lean and not so strong, depending on what you choose to eat. And you can smell what you eat coming from your body. And it of course affects the color of your urine and everything. So that even sounds perfectly legit. But hey, fucking yeah, you get kicked off stage for that. I was figuring I'd go in there and I'd just like make fun of Americans, and they'd get super pissed, be like, damn it, why is he making fun of us? Because you can't really touch a lot of subjects. You know what I'm saying? Like what I'm talking about here, and like that wouldn't be on stage. You wouldn't be allowed on stage too long saying that. You wouldn't be allowed in Hollywood at all saying this stuff. Vanilla is fucking awesome smell though. I love like vanilla, and I didn't know you could smell like it, but I did know you can like smell saltier, and you can smell like onions. And people say you can smell like garlic, but I just eat so much garlic I wouldn't know what that smells like. Well, that's a good thing. If everyone says you smell of ice cream, like there's a lot worse things people could say you smell of. Apparently, people don't like the smell of garlic, but that's too bad because I love the taste of it. And apparently, if I like my smell, I must like the smell of garlic too. Yeah, I have like colognes, perfumes, whatever that I prefer them to have, like undertones of vanilla. And when I used to light incense and stuff, I would get vanilla. So that's like a good thing to smell like. It's definitely a good thing. Like, maybe people eating garbage, though, maybe they don't smell so good, but I don't know. I try not to go. Like, one thing that bothers me is some of the foreigners who come here, like, I don't think they bathe much, so they smell like what they've ate, and they smell like some weird curry type shit. But you really don't put off a smell if you bathe every couple days. Your smell only collects a lot if you don't bathe. And so I assume when I can smell someone at the gym, it's because they haven't bathed in like 5 or 6 days, which is like kind of natural. But I'm like allergic to lots of stuff in this world, like, and I've got folliculitis, so I break out from all sorts of shit. So I have to bathe every few days unless I want to break out. No, it's ocean nasal spray. It's just saline water. It's just salt water. I don't use the heavier chemicals and stuff if I don't have to. I find that Afrin and other strong nasal sprays just make things worse. It might like do something to help open up my passage, but it might do other stuff as well, and then it might return to a worse status later. And I'm not actually trying to like combat for allergies. I'm just trying to combat for dry nose. I've I turned off my humidifier because it got up to 70 degrees outside, and generally I wouldn't need it. But it says right now in my room it's 38% humidity, so I could probably use that still, but I put it away for the season. I don't know why, especially with the way our weather is. It's like freezing one day and then it's 73 the next. Yeah, I've got crazy. Peace out, David. I have I have like crazy respiratory issues. Not just sinus so much, but I'm trying to prevent my throat from hurting. That's a little too late for that. And I try to like decrease the amount of blood coming from my sinuses because that got scary. Like when that first started happening, like the first time I had the problem appear, I like woke up. I think because I wasn't breathing anymore because I was just like choking on my own blood. So after that, like I started getting really allergic to chemicals around me, and the blood started scaring me and making me like panicky all the time. So I had to start doing a bunch of stuff to regulate my internals as best as I can. I don't like being in pain, but they don't really care. Like the doctors don't really care. They don't give me any medicine for that pain, but they will give me like chemicals like similar to Afrin and stuff, which don't actually address that stuff. Actually, can dry me out more and then make the blood flow. Like it doesn't necessarily make the blood flow when you're dried out, but it makes the blood appear more often, and the cracks that the blood comes from happen more often. Yeah, And at first it was mostly just like I was just panicking because all the blood, but after learning so many methods, I can like reduce the pain, and that's a good thing too. But I guess mostly I'm more worried about like I don't want to die from like cancer. Like that sounds like a horrible way to die. To just have sores all the time. So I try to deal with this stuff like just because the discomfort it causes. And the weirdness. It's just like I bled for so long, and everyone just acts like it's normal, although none of them are bleeding internally. And I just eventually I got over that. But I think I also found out too that it's like some sort of stressor that's probably causing most of the blood, not all of it. Like I can tell right now, it's really dry in here. My throat hurts because I'm using my throat to speak and pulling all that air in and out. But at the same time, it's like 38% humidity, so that's definitely contributing to that. And it's like, I'm not scared of dying, and I'm not really scared of the blood so much anymore. It just, I don't want to like live in pain. Like that really sucks. It makes me makes me a really bad person. Like no one wants to be around if I'm in pain, especially at first when the blood first started coming. Everyone kind of contributes to it. They don't really care about you, everyone else. So at first I was like really bad, and like with the pain around, like I'm like a bad person because I'm like fucking in pain, and it's like people act like it's a joke. You know what the odd thing is I've been to so many doctors. There is like no label for a person who has adverse reactions to chemicals or bad conditions. They they don't deal with attempting to think that something is a bad chemical. I don't know why. The labels they have every time I go to a doctor, almost like the labels they have seem to be weird. Like they're invented by people who don't know what they're talking about. Like when they ask me to rate the pain for my scoliosis, like they what does it feel like, and they list these things, and it's like they leave out words like slicing. It's like clearly these people have no understanding of the stuff they talk about in the medical field. The people who designate and make up most of the classifications, they have no idea what they're talking about because they leave out like such important things like they designate it as I'm allergic to stuff, but I take tests for allergies and I'm allergic to nothing. I just humans don't deal well with chemicals, and I deal well with them less. But I bet if someone else was in a room full of bleach for like a day, they as well would have some problems breathing in the bleach. Yeah, high humidity is bad for breeding bacteria and mold and stuff, but it's good for keeping this stuff moist so it doesn't crack and dry out. That's the problem I have. I have like the opposite. I have kind of like an opposite of a problem you have. It's not so much allergies as it's the dryness. half the year being so dry, it's just like I'm cracked open and bleeding, and after years of that, it causes issues. I don't know why it's not like 53% here. It should be a little. I mean, it says it's like 50 degrees outside. It should be more than the 38% it says it is in this room as far as humidity goes. I generally don't get headaches really at all. It's pretty rare I get headaches. I mean, I can if it gets really dry and I don't do this stuff, but overall I generally don't get a lot of headaches. But yeah, when it starts drying out my sinuses up in here, that can cause a lot of sinus pressure and pain when it gets to be really bad conditions like that. Yeah, I'm actually lucky I don't have headaches because people around me tend to have headaches a lot. And then they're always crying about it too. They're like, "Oh, it's so painful. Turn your music down. It hurts so much." It's like I get headaches and it like almost nothing bothers me except for just like being awake and having to feel the headache, but listening to music generally doesn't make it too much worse. Like I get headaches sometimes when I'm at the gym because I'm like stressing while I'm working out and I'm possibly mixing it with some sort of substance I shouldn't, like maybe some pre-workout caffeine or some sort of other my choice pre-workout. Yeah, so like you're saying, the sinus pressure builds up. I think it's like sometimes I get the blood pressure working against me and tension building up when I work out. So I get a couple headaches from that a year. Like I literally had two headaches from that the past week, but the the average occurrence of that is so unlikely that I could easily say those are probably the only two headaches I'll get all year. So I think I'm gonna close this out. I've been talking for a while, and with the dry air, it's combining and making that dry. And plus, maybe I want to go back to sleep. I don't know. I probably should. I want to do something later and not end up sleeping later. So I'm gonna close this out. Yeah, I don't take meds almost for anything. I do for my pain, but it doesn't clear itself up. So it just gets in the way. And I probably would take meds for any of this if it helped, but it doesn't. I've tried all this stuff, and it's like I'm allergic. Like the inhalers make it worse. And that's another weird thing they talk about. They say that they're like, that shouldn't cause problems. And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, clearly it's not asthma if it works for everyone else and not for me. Good talking to you, Maria. See you later. See you later, whoever else is in here. Still. Shiska or whoever.